Hi, this is Hanegraaff, president of the Christian Research Institute and host of the Bible Answer Man broadcast with another Hank Unplugged short. In reality, I have not done many Hank Unplugged shorts in recent days or weeks, and that in part because I have been going through a time of trial and tribulation. Not personally, but I am experiencing, nonetheless, in a very intimate way, the suffering of those who are close to me. My two sisters have both been diagnosed with cancer. My older sister, Joby, has been waging a battle with pancreatic cancer now for 2 years. My sister Tana has recently been diagnosed with a serious case of cancer as well. My older daughter has experienced an accident and has been in a hospital on life support. My second oldest daughter has been diagnosed with cancer. My daughter-in-law, married to my oldest son, is now going through the ravages of cancer. So now I have one hand on which I can remember 5 dear family members who are experiencing suffering very much like I went through a few years ago. And when you go through these times of difficulty, and I might add that for me, it seems almost certainly more difficult to endure the sufferings of others than go through those sufferings myself. And yet he who wishes to be an imitator of our Lord must bear courageously the afflictions of mortality, whether our own mortality or the mortality of friends and loved ones. And it's not just sickness. It can be slander or vilification. It can be the attacks of unseen spirits. And in all of those, we taste the sufferings of Christ. We understand their gravity in order to enter deep into union and communion with the lover of our soul. I think so often that without bodily suffering, we may well remain indifferent to the state of our soul. When we experience sickness and suffering, we become aware of another world. And the sicker we are, the closer that world draws near to us. Perhaps in an overarching sense, suffering allows us to meditate on resurrection, the time in which we become immortal, incorruptible, the time in which we are changed, we experience metamorphosis, the time in which there's identity between the body that dies and the body that rises. The body that rises immortal, incorruptible. It's a time in which we pick up our Bibles and we read 1 Corinthians chapter 15 over and over again. If there is no resurrection, we might as well eat, drink, and be merry because tomorrow we die. But there is a resurrection. And of course, without the incarnation of Jesus Christ, it would be fruitless to talk about resurrection. For it is through the resurrection of our Lord that the triple barrier of nature, sin, and death has been overcome. The barrier of nature by the incarnation of our Lord, the barrier of sin by the death of our Lord, and the barrier of death by the resurrection of our Lord. So this Christmas season, once again, we can take great hope and comfort in the fact that our Lord has come into time and space. The unknowable God has become knowable. The great antinomy, on the one hand, knowable, on the other hand, ineffable, unknowable in his essence. But that God who knit us together in our mother's womb has come into the world, so that even in the midst of suffering, maybe particularly in the midst of suffering, we can arrive at a true valuation of things and then be poured out in new and better fashion. Just some random thoughts as I go through the process of suffering with my loved ones. And as I do, I remember the upcoming incarnation of our Lord, celebrated every year on the 25th of December. And I think of wishing you a Merry Christmas and a year in which you make a difference for time and for eternity. Thanks for tuning in.